Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour, Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Brasilia for a state visit to Brazil to hold bilateral talks with President Lula on key areas of cooperation. At BRICS Summit, Prime Minister addresses session on environment, COP30 and global health, urges for lead by example approach, also says for India, climate justice is not an option, it is a moral duty. US President reignites tariff war, threatens dozen countries with higher tariffs. Japan, South Korea hit with 25% tariffs, negotiating deadline extends till 1st August. Rescuers race against time to find missing people as catastrophic flooding in Texas claims over 100 lives, 21 still missing. And in sports, Wimbledon quarterfinals to kick off on Tuesday. Defending champion Carlos Alcaraz and women's number 1 Arina Sabalenka in action. A top story. After concluding a productive and successful BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is now in the capital city of Brasilia on a state visit to Brazil. On arrival, PM Modi was warmly received by Jose Muzio, Minister of Defense of Brazil, at the airport. The welcome was made delightfully musical by the traditional Brazilian samba reggae performance. In Brasilia, Prime Minister Modi will hold bilateral discussions with Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva on broadening of the strategic partnership between two nations in areas of mutual interest, including trade, defense, energy, space, technology, agriculture, health and people-to-people linkages. Later, Prime Minister Modi was given a grand traditional welcome in Brasilia. Acharya Jonas Marsetti and his associates recited the Shiv Tandav Stotram, while the indigenous people of Brazil's Amazon rainforest chanted local mantras. Taking to social media platform X, PM Modi said, and I quote him here, "The Indian community accorded a memorable welcome, once again highlighting how passionate our diaspora is and how connected they remain with their roots." Unquote. Earlier in Rio de Janeiro, Prime Minister Modi addressed a session on environment, COP30 and global health at the BRICS summit. In his intervention, Prime Minister stressed on strengthening shared efforts to make planet healthier. Prime Minister noted that for India, climate change and environmental protection have always been subjects of the topmost priority. This has also been a part of our ancient culture. For India, climate change is not merely an issue of energy. It is about maintaining balance between life and nature. India is driven by the spirit of people, planet and progress. India has launched numerous initiatives like Mission Life, which is lifestyle for environment, Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, Tree for Mother, International Solar Alliance, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, Green Hydrogen Mission, Global Biofuels Alliance, International Big Cats Alliance. And despite being the world's fastest growing major economy, India was the first country to achieve its Paris commitments ahead of schedule. For India, climate justice is not an option. He said it is a moral duty. India believes that without technology transfer and affordable financing for countries in need, climate action will remain confined merely to climate talks. The health of people and planet is interconnected. The COVID-19 pandemic taught us that viruses do not arrive with visas, nor are solutions chosen based on passports. Hence, we have to strengthen shared efforts to make our planet healthier. Earlier, Prime Minister Modi addressed the inaugural session on reform of global governance and peace and security, as well as a session on strengthening multilateral economic, financial affairs and artificial intelligence at 17th BRICS Summit in Rio de Janeiro. Prime Minister Modi underlined that terrorism was a grave threat facing humanity. Prime Minister also called for working towards responsible AI. Our report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the inaugural session on reform of global governance in peace and security, as well as session on strengthening multilateral economic financial affairs and artificial intelligence at the 17th BRICS Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. In his address at the inaugural session on reform of global governance in peace and security, Prime Minister Modi reaffirmed India's commitment to enhancing the voice of the Global South. PM Modi stated that global governance institutions such as UN Security Council, the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and the World Trade Organization must undergo urgent reform to reflect contemporary realities. Calling for strong global action against terrorism, Prime Minister Modi noted that those funding, promoting, or providing safe havens to terrorists must be dealt with in the harshest terms.
Honorable Prime Minister underlined that terrorism was a grave threat facing humanity. In this context, he noted that all the leaders have condemned Pahalgam terrorist attack in strongest terms.
While in his address at the session on strengthening multilateral economic financial affairs and artificial intelligence, Prime Minister Modi said that BRICS could play an important role in shaping a multipolar world. Prime Minister Modi offered 4 suggestions. First, BRICS' new development bank must follow demand-driven principle and long-term sustainability for granting projects. 2. The group considers setting up a science and research repository which could benefit the Global South countries. 3. Focus must be given to make the supply chain of critical minerals secured and resilient. And number 4, group should work on responsible AI while looking into the concerns of AI governance. It should also give equal importance to promoting innovation in the field. At the conclusion of the leaders' session, member countries adopted the Rio de Janeiro Declaration. The leaders in the declaration noted that we reiterate our support for a comprehensive reform of the United Nations, including its Security Council, with a view to making it more democratic, representative, effective, and efficient. We condemn in the strongest terms the terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir on 22nd April 2025, during which 26 people were killed and many more injured. We reaffirm our commitment to combating terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, including the cross-border movement of terrorists, terrorism financing, and safe havens. We extend full support to India for its BRICS chairship in 2026 and holding the 18th BRICS Summit in India. On the sidelines of the 17th BRICS Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Prime Minister Modi also held bilateral meetings with various world leaders. PM Modi met the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar bin Ibrahim. PM Modi thanked Prime Minister Ibrahim for his strong condemnation of the Pahalgam terror attack. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met Cuba's President, Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez. The two leaders reviewed bilateral ties in the areas of economic cooperation, development partnership, fintech, capacity building, science and technology, disaster management, and healthcare. Besides this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met his Vietnamese counterpart Pham Minh Chinh on the sidelines of BRICS Summit in Brazil. Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, for more perspective, we are joined by former senior diplomat, Ambassador Anil Wadhwa. Welcome, sir. Welcome to DD India. Appreciate you giving us your precious time. First of all, Ambassador, Prime Minister Modi at the BRICS summit in Rio described climate justice not just as a policy but a moral duty for India. What does this stance mean in the context of global climate negotiations?
So India has been quite steadfast in demanding that there should be shared responsibility as far as climate change is concerned. And India has also taken a number of steps itself, which serve as an example for the others. In fact, Prime Minister, if you noticed, he outlined a number of goals that India has met even before time, which it had set for itself. And that itself goes to show the seriousness with which India takes the whole issues of climate change. One of the most important issues facing the climate transition, of course, has been the promise made by the developed countries to the developing countries for climate finance and transfers of technology, which has not taken place in the form and the way in which it was supposed to happen. And in many cases, these promises have been broken and word has not been kept. So this is what Prime Minister Modi wanted to highlight by saying that India has set the example, it has the moral responsibility and takes it very, very seriously for the rest of the world.
Yes, Ambassador Wadhwa, Prime Minister spoke about several key initiatives launched by India, Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, International Solar Alliance, etc. But how do these diverse initiatives position India as a leader in global climate action, particularly within the BRICS framework and ahead of COP30 in November?
So India is one of the few countries which has actually taken concrete steps which others can follow. And, all these initiatives that the Prime Minister referred to and which you have just now also enumerated are ones which can be easily followed by the BRICS countries, first of all, and also the others going forward. And they all contribute to our collective effort that the world has towards mitigating the effects of climate change. Now, of course, it's another issue that a number of countries today are not very serious about the commitments that they themselves had undertaken in the past. But Prime Minister Modi has been always talking about a lifestyle change, and life is one of those acronyms which he designed and also explained at various fora, for instance. Plus all the initiatives like tapping the sun for energy, etc., are all initiatives which are easy to follow, they're easy to be part of, and all this contributes collectively to mitigating the effects of climate change.
Ambassador Wadhwa, also, a few points to mention. BRICS leaders emphasized on empowerment of the global south. Tell us, what does this mean in the current geopolitical and economic landscape?
Well, I think, this is a demand of the global south for quite a long time. First of all, the reform of the political institutions and the economic institutions which go with it. And that is why the Prime Minister specifically mentioned the UN Security Council, the Monetary Fund and the World Bank, as well as the World Trading Organization, which must undergo reforms so that, they can reflect what is happening today in the world rather than what happened in the past. And a number of countries, and he outlined that very clearly, have now come into a situation where they can play a much more meaningful role than the others who were original members and who actually dictate terms. In terms of the economic institution, especially the World Bank and the IMF, that is where the voice of the global south is most needed. And that is because for all development issues and for all the requirements of the global south, like climate finance, for instance, you need to have a special attention, and otherwise they will not be able to have any progress whatsoever in climate mitigation. And the same goes for the UN Security Council, because it's the most powerful political body in the world. It is totally paralyzed because of the conflict within the P5 right now, and they hardly come to any decisions. In fact, the debates are reduced to, we are reduced to a spectacle of making speeches, but no action results whatsoever. And we've seen that in major conflicts that have happened recently, starting from Ukraine and then Gaza, for instance,
Yeah.
which are directly affecting the developed world, the global south, because of rise in prices and also disruption of supply chains. So it's very important that these reforms are carried out as quickly as possible. And of course, BRICS is not something, not an organization which can implement all these reforms, but
Okay.
it's very important that it expresses its opinion, which is then implemented by the rest of the world.
Okay, yes. In fact, they expressed concerns about ongoing conflicts in many parts of the world. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke about the terrorism. Ambassador Wadhwa, BRICS leaders have jointly condemned the Pahalgam attack. Tell us, what significance does this unified stance carry in the broader context of the regional security?
This was one of the most comprehensive references that we have seen to the issue of terrorism in a grouping of this nature or equivalent nature. And I think India was able to put its viewpoint across very, very forcefully here. The formulations cover not just the condemning the whole issue of terrorism, including cross-border terrorism, but also making sure that those who perpetrate terrorism, who give who actually harbor terrorists are those who are also punished for it. And plus, at the same time, after a long time, we've seen a reference in a communique of this sort to the UN Convention on Terrorism, mooted in 1996, which still is steeped in controversy because of a non-definition of terrorism issues. And I think, getting an emphasis back on that particular proposal of a convention is very important. Going forward, I think we will see more of such references to the convention, and also the fact that there's been a comprehensive reference this time to the whole issue of terrorism is extremely important as far as India is concerned.
Ambassador Wadhwa, just one last question before we leave you. With India preparing to take the BRICS leadership baton from Brazil, what fresh priorities and initiatives can we expect under India's presidency?
I think Prime Minister Modi was quite clear in making sure that when India takes over the presidency of BRICS, and in that context he made these four proposals, like the proposal on the new development bank, where all the projects must be demand based. Secondly, to set up a mechanism whereby the benefits of science and technology can be shared and can benefit the BRICS countries. Thirdly, to ensure that we collectively work towards the supply of critical minerals, for instance, and making sure that the supply chains are not disrupted. And finally, working towards a responsible AI, artificial intelligence, and making sure that everyone participates and is a beneficiary of that.
Right.
So these are the four main themes, I think, which will be carried forward into the Indian BRICS presidency. And at the same time, the whole agenda of the reform of the global system, along with localized payments and currencies, etc., along with the digital stack that India has been pushing, will all find a prominent place as we take over the presidency.
Absolutely, Ambassador Wadhwa. We'll leave it at that. Thank you for your insights.
Many thanks.
On the sidelines of the BRICS summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held meetings with his counterparts. PM met with the President of Uruguay, Yamandu Orsi, on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The two leaders held discussions covering the full spectrum of bilateral relations. A key area of discussions was strengthening bilateral trade and investment. Both sides expressed interest in the expansion of the India-Mercosur preferential trade agreement, aiming to unlock greater economic potential and trade complementarities. Prime Minister expressed gratitude to President Orsi for the strong condemnation of the recent barbaric terrorist attack in Pahalgam and appreciated Uruguay's solidarity with India in the fight against terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. Prime Minister Modi also held a meeting with President of Bolivia, Luis Alberto Arce. In Rio de Janeiro, the two leaders reviewed bilateral cooperation and expressed satisfaction with the progress achieved. They expressed satisfaction over the ongoing development cooperation between the two countries, including through quick impact projects and capacity building initiatives under the iTech scholarship programs. Prime Minister Modi expressed solidarity with the people of Bolivia in the wake of the severe flooding that occurred in March-April 2025 in La Paz and several other parts of the country. He also congratulated Bolivia for joining the International Solar Alliance. Prime Minister also conveyed his best wishes on the historic occasion of Bolivia's 200 years of independence. And India's Finance and Corporate Affairs Minister Nirmala Sitharaman participated in the BRICS Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting held in Rio de Janeiro. The minister underscored India's economic resilience and its commitment to inclusive multilateralism. During the high-level discussions, the finance minister highlighted India's robust economic performance, attributing it to strong domestic demand, sound macroeconomic management and well-calibrated fiscal policies. Moving on, US President Donald Trump has reignited his trade war by threatening more than a dozen countries with higher tariffs on Monday. The US President renewed 25% tax on products entering the country from Japan and South Korea and shared a batch of other letters to world leaders warning of levies from 1st August. Countries including Indonesia, Bangladesh, Thailand, South Africa and Malaysia were slapped with duties ranging from 25% to 40%. Trump warned of further escalation if there was retaliation against the levies.
The President will also sign an executive order today delaying the July 9th deadline to August 1st. So the reciprocal tariff rate or these new rates that will be provided in this correspondence to these foreign leaders will be going out the door within the next month, or deals will be made. And those countries continue to negotiate with the United States. We've seen a lot of positive developments in the right direction, but the administration, the president and his trade team want to cut the best deals for the American people.
Let's now take a look at how much tariff will be levied on what country. Trump's tariffs would apply to Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Kazakhstan and Tunisia, all subject to the lowest rate of 25%. South Africa and Bosnia and Herzegovina are facing a 30% tariff rate. Indonesia would be subject to a 32% rate, Serbia and Bangladesh a 35% rate and 36% rate on goods from Cambodia and Thailand. While the steepest tariffs would be levied on Laos and Myanmar, with both facing duties of 40% each, all 14 countries, many of which have highly export-reliant economies, had previously been subject to the baseline tariff of 10%. And Trump tariffs have sparked mixed reactions globally, with countries having until August 1st to reach trade deals and avoid higher tariffs. South Korea, which is facing a 25% tariff hike, is cautiously optimistic about brokering a deal. Washington has expressed agreement and hopes to reach an agreement before August 1st. South Korea's National Security Advisor Ri Sung said Washington has expressed agreement and hoped the two sides could reach an agreement before August 1st through close communication. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba called the hike deeply regrettable and stated that Japan will continue negotiations with the US. With 32% tariffs imposed, Indonesia plans to increase agricultural and energy imports from the United States to finalize an agreement. While Jakarta has already signed a deal to import 1 million tons of American wheat annually worth $1.25 billion. Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Manet assured the White House of Phnom Penh's good faith in negotiating reducing tariffs on 19 categories of American products. Now, Thailand, which faces 36% levies and is offering more access to its market for American agricultural and industrial products, increasing energy purchases and boosting Boeing airplane orders. While Bangladesh is looking at a 35% tariff on its goods. but was hoping to sign an agreement by early July. And US President Donald Trump has just given the EU 3 more weeks to negotiate a trade deal. It looked like good news on the surface, but it seems there are problems besides unrealistic timelines. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin. Lars, good to have you. What are you hearing from Brussels?
Thanks for having me. Yes, indeed, the more we're hearing from Washington and from Brussels, the more I get the feeling that unrealistic timelines are not the problem at all. Look, it has always been clear that the EU and the US wouldn't be able to negotiate a comprehensible trade agreement within such a short time. As a matter of fact, no trading partner of the US can negotiate a reasonable agreement in just a few weeks. And those who have signed a deal, I'm looking at Britain here, for example, they basically used the old deal they had, made a few updates. It was mostly a big show put on to placate Donald Trump. Now, let's not waste any more time on Trump rushing to get deals. The much bigger problem is the European Union appears torn over what kind of a deal they actually want to have with the United States. Germany and Italy are the two EU member states that are in fact making the case for quickly signing a deal. No wonder. Their economies heavily rely on exports to the US and they fear higher tariffs. But then there's France and Denmark, for example, who are warning that the EU might be about to sell out to the US and likely get to regret that later.
But Lars, what are these countries afraid of and why are they worried about a sellout?
Well, they're clearly worried about signing a deal that's bad for the European Union. The EU, for all its faults, for all its bureaucracy, the EU has a lot that's been working pretty well. Strict regulation of products, services, safety, data security. And there are many who fear that those rules and regulations could be weakened for the United States and that the entire system built up over decades could begin to crumble. A few examples. The US would like for the EU to loosen food safety standards, allow the import of agriculture products from the US that do not qualify under current regulations. The US wants the EU to loosen the rules of its Digital Services Act to benefit American business giants like Meta, Apple, Amazon and such. And then when it comes to the auto industry, Trump would like EU automakers, and that's to a very large part, of course, German automakers, to move more and more production across the pond. Now, mind you, German automakers already run huge plants in the US, but Trump wants to have a larger market share for US-made goods, which would obviously weaken those companies' home markets. And some are saying, and rightly so, should we just agree to all this just to avoid higher tariffs on cars and steel?
All right, Lars, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. We are slipping into a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Up next, we'll get you more details on why India abstained from UN resolution on Afghanistan. And June recorded hottest ever in 12 countries and was exceptionally warm in 26 other countries. Details after the break. And also we'll get you the latest weather predictions from across the country.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Recap of our top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Brasilia for a state visit to Brazil to hold bilateral talks with President Lula on key areas of cooperation. At BRICS Summit, Prime Minister addresses session on environment, COP30 and global health. urges for lead by example approach, also says for India, climate justice is not an option, it is a moral duty. And in sports, Wimbledon quarterfinals to kick off on Tuesday. Defending champion Carlos Alcaraz and women's number 1 Aryna Sabalenka in action. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Brasilia for a state visit to Brazil, where he will hold bilateral discussions with President Lula da Silva on the broadening of the strategic partnership. DD India exclusively speaks to India's ambassador to Brazil, Dinesh Bhatia, on New Delhi's key priorities and the state of India-Brazil relations. Take a listen.
As we continue our special coverage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 5-nation visit, we are joined in by Ambassador Dinesh Bhatia, who is the Ambassador of India to Brazil. Thank you so much, sir, for talking to DD India. How do you think, where is the trajectory of the relationship between both the leaders, Prime Minister Modi and President Lula, considering this is Prime Minister Modi's 4th visit this time?
Well, between India and Brazil, as a matter of fact, Brazil was the first country in Latin America where we opened our embassy in 1948. Brazil and India have always been close countries. They have been part of Global South, and since 2006 our bilateral relations were elevated to strategic partnership.
As you said, this is going to be a very important, much awaited bilateral that is going to happen. But having said that, both countries are agriculture powerhouses. As you said, there's going to be a cooperation. What kind of cooperation can we look forward to in terms of both the countries coming together? Food security, much more sustainable farming practices?
Yes, as I said, there is a discussion between ICAR and Embrapa of Brazil for concluding an agreement on agricultural research. Besides that, let's keep in mind that while the two countries are superpowers in their own right for agriculture and agriculture export, we are not competing with each other. Right. So our trade basket, our export basket is different from export basket of Brazil. So in that way, there is also a complementarity, because Brazil has certain produces which we need, and there are certain produces of India which they need, of course. And that is being discussed.
One last question. Biofuels, one of the important sectors, mining, one of the important sectors, and as you also said, defense cooperation. Can you elaborate a little more on these 3 ripe sectors of cooperation?
Mining is very important. Brazil has abundance of critical minerals and rare earth minerals, and where India is looking for partnerships, and we are going to further discuss this during this visit. This is one sector where I think the potential is humongous, and we need to explore all of that. Oil and gas is a sector where we already have investments in Brazil, and we can also use Brazil's expertise in offshore oil and gas for doing something in India. Then you coming to defense cooperation, there is a discussion, and our public and private sector companies are talking about collaborations at the manufacturing level, at the export and import level. A lot of discussion is going on.
So here, as global attention shifts to Brazil with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the BRICS summit, as well as for this landmark bilateral that is going to happen between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Lula, we'll bring to you all the important updates, insights and exclusives from Brazil, only for DD India. With camera person Jay Shankar and Piyush, this is Meghna Dev for DD India from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
India abstained from voting on the United Nations General Assembly resolution on the situation in Afghanistan on Monday, citing ongoing concerns about the use of country's territory by designated terrorist groups. The text titled "The Situation in Afghanistan" was adopted by a vote of 116 in favor to Israel and the United States against, while 12 abstentions, including India. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Parvatneni Harish, noted that a business-as-usual approach without new and targeted initiatives is unlikely to deliver the outcomes the international community envisions for the Afghan people. He added that India is closely monitoring the security situation in Afghanistan.
India is closely monitoring the security situation in Afghanistan. The international community must direct its coordinated efforts towards ensuring that entities and individuals designated by the UN Security Council, the Al-Qaeda and their affiliates, ISIL and their affiliates, including Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, along with their regional sponsors who facilitate their operations, no longer exploit Afghan territory for terrorist activities.
Ambassador P. Harish also spoke about the humanitarian assistance provided by India to Afghanistan. Take a listen.
India's immediate priorities in Afghanistan include the provision of humanitarian assistance and the implementation of capacity-building initiatives for the Afghan people. We have been working closely with UN agencies to support the Afghan people in critical areas such as health, food security, education, and sports. India's commitment to Afghanistan's reconstruction is demonstrated through more than 500 development partnerships across all provinces.
All right, global weather updates now. First from India. The India Met Department issued orange alerts for several states, including Uttarakhand, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Odisha and Telangana for Tuesday. As per the weathermen, these states may witness heavy to very heavy rainfall in the coming days. Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand and East Rajasthan may receive rainfall until July 10, while Vidarbha and Marathwada region in Maharashtra, Telangana and Gujarat could experience rainfall till Wednesday. Continuous rain is predicted for the next 6 to 7 days in Goa and the Western Ghat in Maharashtra. Saurashtra and Kutch in Gujarat are also expected to receive showers on July 12 and 13th. Meanwhile, the Delhi NCR region is under a yellow alert and is likely to receive light to moderate rainfall on July 8th. Jammu and Kashmir is witnessing light to moderate rain and thunder showers at many places, while a few places may receive intense showers with heavy rain at isolated spots in Jammu division. IMD has also issued an advisory stating that flash floods at a few vulnerable places. Whereas in Shimla, despite red and orange alerts warning given in past few days, there was no rainfall in the state during the past 48 hours. In the capital Shimla, the weather remained clear throughout the day on Monday. With the sun shining, a rise in maximum temperature was recorded. And India Met Department has issued an orange alert for heavy rains for 6 districts of Rajasthan on Tuesday. Several regions including Kota, Jaipur and Bikaner divisions witnessed significant showers. So far, Rajasthan has received 128% more rainfall than normal. Extreme rainfall has collapsed normal life of Kolkata and in few districts of south and coastal districts. Many places in North Kolkata like Amhar Street, Central Avenue underwater, districts like South 24 Parganas, East and West Medinipur, Jhargram are also facing extreme rainfall. In Kerala, moderate rainfall and gusty wind speed reaching 40 km per hour is likely to occur at one or two places in the Ernakulam, Thrissur, Malappuram, Kozhikode, Kannur and Kasaragod districts. Light rainfall and gusty wind speed is reaching 40 km per hour is likely to occur at one or two places in all other districts of Kerala. Yellow alert has been issued to Kozhikode, Kannur, Wayanad and Kasaragod district. And IMD has predicted a mix of rain and scorching heat across Tamil Nadu over the next few days. Chennai's weather is expected to remain warm and humid with occasional chances of light rainfall due to the ongoing southwest monsoon influence. On Tuesday, the minimum and maximum temperature are likely to be around 28 degrees Celsius and 35 degrees Celsius respectively. And due to continuous heavy rainfall in the catchment area of the Radhanagari Dam, the water level has reached 80% of its total capacity in the first week of July. This marks the earliest the dam has filled in recent years, largely due to substantial water storage already present in May. Although rainfall intensity in Nashik city has reduced over the past 3 days, discharge from the dam has been increased as a precautionary measure. The India Met Department has forecast heavy rainfall accompanied by lightning in most parts of Konkan and Vidarbha and at isolated locations in Madhya Maharashtra and Marathwada. Gusty winds are also expected along the Konkan coast. All right, for weather updates, Prasenjit Bakshi joins us from Kolkata and Shama Mishra is joining us live from Mumbai. Prasenjit, I'll come to you first. Tell us about the current situation there. In Kolkata, what areas of the city are the worst affected by the waterlogging and how is it impacting daily life and traffic?
Look, Abhishek, even now, the sky is absolutely cloudy. Weather is very gloomy and rain is continuing, not in a heavy manner, but it is continuing. Whatever the information we have received from the Met Department, that in last 24 hours in Kolkata and in and around area, average rainfall was more than 90 millimeter, 90 millimeter. So you can well understand that what is the situation of capital city Kolkata, and from the early morning people found that the central Kolkata particularly and the parts of South Kolkata absolutely waterlogged, and the movement of the common people hampered. Office goers could not reach their offices. So such type of situation is continuing, I must say, that since last afternoon. And as I said, that even you can well realize, I think so, that at this point of time the light is very gloomy, sky is heavily clouded, and rain is continuing. Abhishek.
All right, Prasanjit, stay with us. I'll come back to you. Shama, tell us about the current situation there in Maharashtra, Mumbai in particular. What all areas are on alert?
Well, Abhishek, for starters, the area of Mumbai and Thane and the adjoining areas have no alerts, absolutely no alert. That is, we are in the green zone. That means we will be receiving rainfall, but it will not be heavy. Also, the other areas, including the Palghar, Raigad, these areas are also having no alert whatsoever. Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, Nashik, Dhule, these areas have been given a yellow alert warning, which means heavy to very heavy rainfall can be expected in these places. Also, there will be gusty winds accompanied with the heavy rains in these areas. We are also getting to know that the North Konkan area and the North Madhya Maharashtra will be receiving moderate rainfall. The South Konkan and the Goa districts would be receiving heavy to very heavy rainfall. Apart from that, the good news that Mumbai and the adjoining areas is witnessing is that the temperatures have gone down. It has become bearable, and also the 7 lakes that supply water to the island city is now seeing a remarkable surge in the water level. So we can say that close to 70% all these 7 lakes have been filled to their capacity, and the upper Vetarna, the middle Vetarna, they've also gathered a good capacity, which is more than 90%. Upper Vetarna and middle Vetarna is also close to that. So we can be happy about it, that the problem, that the concern of the water supply to the island city for now has been resolved, and we are hoping that more rains in the catchment areas should happen, so that these lakes get filled to their capacity at the earliest, and definitely the island city or Mumbai can have their water concerns gone away completely. But yes, there's no rain, and here and there we are experiencing a bit of rains in Mumbai, but that is not causing any problem, any trouble in Mumbai city.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for getting us the latest. Shama from Mumbai and Prasanjit Bakshi from Kolkata. Moving on, at the Nepal-China border, 9 people stranded in various places of Rasuwa after the flooded Lende stream have been rescued safely, while 17 people are still missing, including 11 Nepalese and 6 Chinese nationals. The flooded Lende stream has swept away the Miteripul, a bridge connecting Nepal and China in Rasuwa district. Damage has also been reported to the Rasuwa Gadi hydropower dam. Deadly floods and landslides are common across South Asia during the monsoon season from June to September, but experts say climate change is making them worse. And Texas flash floods of 4th July left more than 100 dead, including many children. Search teams plodded through muddy riverbanks and flew aircraft over a flood-ravaged central Texas landscape as hopes dimmed for finding more survivors among dozens still missing from a disaster that has claimed more than 100 lives. A detailed report. There's no such thing as a natural disaster. Geographers like to say, a reminder that human choices turn hazards into tragedies. Texas Hill Country sits in an area known as Flash Flood Alley. Warm Gulf air rushes up a line of steep hills and cliffs that arc southwest down, cools and dumps torrents onto thin soils that quickly give way to bedrock. Runoff then funnels through a dense web of creeks. Water rises very, very quickly within minutes or a few hours. The early hours of July 4 proved that. An urgent NWS warning went out shortly after 1 a.m. But most campers were already asleep and in the area where phones are banned and the coverage is patchy. Darkness made escape routes further hard to judge. At least 27 of the victims were girls and counselors caught at a summer camp when flood waters surged through the area over the 4th of July weekend, leaving little time to escape. The camp, located along a river, was overwhelmed in a matter of minutes. People are still searching for their neighbors and friends.
A week ago at Camp Mystic, I had 5 granddaughters in Camp Mystic, and they finished their first session and they're home now. But some of their friends were there for the second session, and my heart goes out to all those little girls.
Experts stress that NWS forecasters performed admirably under the circumstances. The real failure was not a bad weather prediction, it was a timely dissemination of forecast and warning.
Organizations like that have the safety of many people in their care at stake have to appoint a person at all times of the day or night to be receiving those weather warnings and then being able to take action on that. That's like how those organizations would handle physical security. Somebody always has to be making sure that people are safe and secure. Same thing as it relates to mitigating weather risk.
Forecasters have warned of more flooding as rain falls on saturated ground, complicating recovery efforts involving helicopters, boats, dogs, and some 1,750 personnel. President Donald Trump is due to visit Texas on Friday as the White House slammed critics claiming his cuts to weather agencies had weakened warning systems. Human-driven climate change has made extreme weather events such as floods, droughts, and heat waves more frequent and more intense in recent years. Bureau Report, DD India. And from California to Catalonia and from the hills of southern France to the forests of Syria, wildfires are raging across continents. Fueled by extreme heat, these blazes are pushing firefighting efforts to the limit as climate change continues to accelerate the scale and intensity of wildfire emergencies worldwide. DD India's Yashasvi brings you this report. Dry brush, sustained winds and high temperatures are once again joining forces to serve a heady and extremely dangerous fire cocktail to California. More than 1,400 firefighters are battling the state's largest blaze of the year, the Madre Fire, burning through Los Padres National Forest. Last week alone, crews fought 65 wildfires statewide amid worsening conditions. The fire has scorched over 80,000 acres so far. A similar scenario is unfolding across the Atlantic. In southern France, a fierce wildfire is tearing through hilly region, destroying at least 1,400 hectares and forcing evacuations and the closure of a major highway. Hundreds of firefighters and water-bombing aircraft have been deployed to put out the flames that have destroyed through at least 1,400 hectares of land. In Catalonia, Spain, firefighters confronted a wildfire in the Pals Mountains of Tarragona province that has scorched over 150 hectares. Smoke billowed heavily as crews worked to stabilize the fire flanks amid challenging conditions. 75 firefighting teams, including 16 aerial units and 2 large aircraft, are engaged in containment efforts. Syrian emergency workers with aviation help from Turkey and Jordan are battling to put out wildfires that have devoured 100 square kilometers of forest in the province of Latakia. High temperatures and remnants left behind from the 13-year unrest in the region are fueling the country's worst blazes in years. Climate change, rising global temperatures, prolonged droughts, and stronger winds are fueling faster, more destructive fires, pushing emergency systems to the brink across multiple continents. Bureau Report, DD India. Well, let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. With frequent quakes near Kagoshima's outer islands, Japan's earthquake readiness is on full display at Tokyo's Sensoji Temple. Staff guide tourists to safety zones and hold annual drills with emergency services. Parks near Tokyo Bay double as shelters and school children regularly practice evacuation. While tourists may not be vigilant, Japan's well-drilled population and infrastructure stand ready, proving that preparedness is a way of life here. A pod of whales has been spotted off the coast of Quy Nhon, Vietnam, displaying an uplifting sign of marine recovery. The majestic sight is drawing tourists and photographers, but authorities urge people to stay at least 100 meters away and avoid loud noise. Locals are also advised to fish responsibly and report any distressed whales. Sports now. Defending Wimbledon champion Carlos Alcaraz and women's #1 Aryna Sabalenka headlined the first day of quarterfinals on Tuesday. The Spaniard has set up a quarterfinal clash against Britain's Cameron Norrie. The two-time defending champion aims to join an elite group of men who have won the tournament thrice in a row in open era. Earlier, Jean Borg, Pete Sampras, Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic have achieved the feat. In another quarterfinal clash, fifth seed Taylor Fritz is up against Karen Khachanov. In the women's draw, Aryna Sabalenka chases a fourth Grand Slam title but a first Wimbledon crown. The top seed, who has never been past the semi-finals at the tournament, takes on Laura Siegemund for the semi-finals berth. In another battle, 34-year-old Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova has a tough task against 13th seed Amanda Anisimova. Former world #1 Deepika Kumari and Asian Games gold medalist Jyoti Venom will spearhead India's challenge at the Archery World Cup Stage 4 that gets underway in Spain on Tuesday. The tournament will host 336 archers from 49 countries in Madrid from July 8 and 13, with the last few spots for World Cup final in China up for grabs. India has sent a 16-member squad to the Spanish capital, headlined by Deepika Kumari. Meanwhile, Jyoti will lead the women's compound team. And England coach Brendan McCullum contemplates recalling pacer Jofra Archer for the third test against India after 4 years. Archer has taken 42 wickets in 13 test matches but has not played in the format since February 2021 after a succession of elbow injuries and back issues. McCullum said Jofra is looking fit, he's looking strong, he's ready to go and he'll come into calculations. Archer was in the squad for the second test but did not feature as India hammered England by 336 runs. The third match of the series starts at Lord's on Thursday. And Fluminense relished their role as the Club World Cup's underdogs ahead of semi-final against Chelsea in New Jersey on Tuesday. Manager Renato Gosho has led the Brazilian side to an improbable run. The club arrived in the United States with just a 0.05% chance of winning the title and were initially tipped to exit in the group stage. The charismatic 62-year-old Renato has transformed the club from relegation battlers to giant killers in 3 months. They knocked out Champions League runners-up Inter Milan in the last 16 and Al Hilal in the quarterfinals. On the other hand, Chelsea are favourites to win the clash and will try to reach a second major final in 3 months. They have looked like one of the fresher European sides in this tournament. And in a heartwarming moment straight out of a nature tale, a stranded elephant calf was rescued from northeast India's Panbari forest by the Kaziranga staff and Centre for Wildlife Rehabilitation and Conservation. The calf had wandered away from its herd, but thanks to swift and expert action, it was safely reunited with its mother, who welcomed her baby back with frankfuls of affection. Assam Chief Minister Hemanta Biswa Sarma also praised the effort, posting, "Everyone deserves motherly love, a perfect blend of wildlife care, compassion and cuteness." Unquote. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.